Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Welcome back to another Raiders daily stream. You know the drill. Monday to Wednesday, it's Momotin. And then, that is so funny. I just got a Bleach Report update about Sam Darnold and the Vikings' willingness to bring him back. We'll talk about it all. What was I saying? Thursday and Friday. It's me, Rodney. If you already knew that, thank you so much for coming back and watching another stream. Whether you're watching live on Bleacher Report or watching after the fact on my YouTube channel, ALLaBorde Raiders, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure we're commenting in the chat. If you're watching live, we're going to have some polls, and these polls are going to be fun. They're going to be super duper fun. Oh, silky smooth. Look, I've been known to hit a note every now and again, do a little bit of karaoke, but maybe that's another YouTube channel, another stream for another day. If you're watching live here, thank you so much. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, thank you so much. You saw the title of this stream or the title of this video, and it's going to be one that, look, I'm finally on the record. I'm just reading about Sam Darnold right now. Hold on. This could be sneaky breaking news. Do cost and there's cap space. Okay, so Sam Darnold might be franchise tagged. Is that the word in the street? Okay, I'm gonna need somebody. If you're already on the Bleach Report app, try to find that update that they just said about Sam Darnold and read it to me because I'm using my phone here to stream, and I don't want to mess anything up going on Bleach Report on my computer. So if you can find that, let me know. But for right now, I'm gonna finally put myself on the record. My top 5 quarterback options that I would start if I was GM John Spytek. Luckily, I'm not. Look. I'm not knocking anybody for being bald. I'm just saying the line of work that he's in, probably a lot of stress. His hair had no chance, even if he had a strong hairline. It is what it is. A lot of stress there. I could just say it and then move on. My top 5 options that I would bring in via free agency, the draft, or trade. Maybe one of them's already on the roster. We'll see if Aiden O'Connell gets a look. But as I start discussing the options and each one that I'm going to break down, I'm going to give a little tight 5 on why I would bring him in, the pros and cons of this person. I want you to make sure that you are letting me know in the comments what your top 5s are, what you think about each person that I'm saying. And if I say a name you don't like, don't fly off the handle. Let me pitch it to you. And then we'll move forward with that. And then we're going to get into some free agents that I think we should target that are not our own free agents. We'll do that in a separate live stream next week, which will be Thursday. Friday, I actually have off because I'll be on an airplane. So wish me luck for my travels. And I already see Aaron Rodgers' name popping up. So let's discuss the top 5 options I have at quarterback. And then there will be polls specific to some of the people. Let me bring my list up here so I make sure that I'm saying the right name. Yep. Okay. So at number 5, it's interesting because Sam Darnold a year ago signed a 1-year, $10 million deal. No one thought he was going to be this good. And now, because of this deal that he signed, which is only 1 year, the Minnesota Vikings, and hopefully somebody can tell me what just happened with Sam Darnold and the Vikings. Okay, here we go. Next Effect 83 says Sam Darnold Vikings rumors open to contract franchise tag, not the likeliest path. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Thank you for both of you guys that just said that. People didn't know Sam Darnold was going to be this good, right? And everyone's like, well, let's just go get Sam Darnold. Some people want to do that. Some people don't. I want to do that. He'll be on this list somewhere. I don't want to give it away. Sometimes I lie in bed awake at night and I look up at the stars and I think, well, Sam Darnold, no one knew that was going to happen. Who's the next Sam Darnold? Could we find the next cheap version of that can just blow the doors off this place? Because Sam Darnold had little to no success every single place he went until he went to the 49ers, where he learned under Kyle Shanahan. And he showed, like, okay, maybe Sam could do something here. And I'm sure Kyle Shanahan put in a good word with Kevin O'Connell, his boy, right? There's another young quarterback out there, 25, 26 years old, maybe. Former second pick in the NFL draft. What's happening? Can you hear me? Hello? Did you lose me? I'm still here. Okay, I don't know what just happened. Hopefully everything's good. I'm going to continue. Um, Former second overall pick, terrible tenure to start his career. Might have been the environment, might have been his play. We don't know. But then he took this year to be a backup and to learn under one of the great offensive minds of our generation in Sean Payton. My number 5 option is Zach Wilson. Now, again, before you fly off the handle, this is my number 5 option. It's not my number 3 option, not my number 2, not my number 1. The next Sam Darnold is out there somewhere. And Zach Wilson, extremely similarly to Sam Darnold, comes from a Jets organization. Dysfunctional. We know all about dysfunction. We know it when we see it. The Jets are right there with us. Did not play well. Won 7 games with a good defense. Extremely talented, athletic, mobile, strong arm. Took a year to learn under Sean Payton. And I'm just throwing this out there. Of all the options, he could be the cheapest. That's pretty funny. The next Sam Darnold is out there. Make sure we lock the door. That's pretty funny. I'm not going to lie to you. O'Connell might be better than him or is better than him. I don't know. Look. I'm just throwing this out there. It would be a shame to not do your due diligence on every single option. And I've read that the Broncos want to bring him back. His market value is like 1 year, $3 million. If you want to talk about building a strong roster, the best way to do that is to have your quarterback make little to no money. Now, the problem with that is I still think you need to bring in a veteran behind him. But I've got to be honest with you. I've liked him coming out, and I don't think he was set up for success with Robert Saleh and the Jets. I think Chip Kelly could do wonders with somebody like a Zach Wilson, and it's someone to seriously consider. Just throwing that out there. Zach Wilson's my number 5. My number 4. I think this is going to be polarizing, but it's just dependent upon where you stand with starting rookie quarterbacks. And I'll tell you right now, actually, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to give away anything else on my list. But number 4 on my list is someone who's not yet in the NFL, and it's Shedeur Sanders. The reason why I have Shedeur on the list is because not only does it feel likely that we could take him at 6 if he's there, but of all the quarterbacks coming out, he for sure has the highest floor. And there are no character problems with him. There are no work ethic problems. Everybody that's ever talked to Shedeur Sanders has said he is going to do whatever it takes to be the best player on your team. The problem lies with his athletic ability. His arm is okay. His mobility is fine. His pocket presence is iffy. Now, was that because he had a bad offensive line and he developed some bad habits and that can be coached out of him? Maybe. We'll see. Only time will tell. But Hot Mike User says Sanders is the most day one ready starter. I'm just not sold. I agree with you. I agree with everything you just said. That's why I have him at number 4. That's why I'm trying to wire my brain into preparing for this likely outcome that he could be our next quarterback. He has the highest floor. And I've made this comparison, and I don't want people to think that I'm saying that Shedeur Sanders is like this person. But Mac Jones came into the league with an extremely high floor, plug and play. And what happens? They plugged him in, he played, and they went 10-6 and made the playoffs. Since then, he hasn't gotten any better, and he's now off the team. So I think Shedeur Sanders can come in right away and ball. But will he get any better? Do his limitations as an athlete hinder his ability to become one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League? Or will he be Kirk Cousins? Only time will tell. But here's my biggest drawback. And I'm going to push this poll out here and pin it so everybody can see. So we can start voting here. How comfortable are you starting a rookie? Because if I'm completely honest with you, I don't love the idea of ever doing that. Unless you've run out of options and I think it is dependent on the roster and it's dependent on the player as well. I just think I've seen successful rookie quarterbacks more likely than not sit at least a third of the season. If it was up to me, I would go Matt Stafford and Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur Sanders wouldn't see the field for 2 seasons minimum. 1 season minimum. Cam Ward wouldn't see the field for 2 seasons minimum. Jackson Dart wouldn't see the field for 2 seasons minimum. I don't think it's a coincidence that, the greatest quarterback in the league right now, debatable after that Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes, sat for a year behind Alex Smith, a very good quarterback who was winning the division every single season he went to play for the Kansas City Chiefs with, and they had a really good roster in place. Our roster is not where the Kansas City Chiefs roster was, right? You can't access the poll. That's interesting. I don't know why. Is everybody else having trouble accessing the poll? That could be something I could talk to Bleacher Report about if that's an issue. Maybe you're not logged in. I don't know what's going on there. There's also not a coincidence that the Green Bay Packers went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. Rodgers sat for years behind Favre. Love sat for years behind Rodgers. It's pretty rare that you have a Jaden Daniels or a CJ Stroud come in and blow the doors off the place. So I think you guys are 100% correct. It depends on the roster and depends on the rookie. But in an ideal world, I would not start any rookie. I don't care if it's Andrew Luck. I don't care if it's Shedeur Sanders. Unless, again, you go into training camp and they just blow the doors off the place. Still want to draft him and let him sit a year, build around him this year and next year, let him start. I think whoever you draft, you got to sit him. Even if that means going and getting somebody like literally like a Kirk Cousins for 1 year. I know that's not what people want to hear. Spoiler alert, he's not on my list. But if it helps Shedeur Sanders grow, then I'm okay with Shedeur Sanders being my 4th option on this list. So we went Zach Wilson, Shedeur Sanders. And by the way, both of those options are cheap. Shedeur Sanders is not as cheap, obviously, but that's a running theme here. If you want to build a roster, you're going to need the money to do so. So I'm going to end this poll here. Okay, so my number 3 option. So we had Zach Wilson, Shedeur Sanders. My number 3 is probably going to be the most polarizing. And I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off and say it's Aaron Rodgers. Now, I have to admit to you 100,000%. 100,000%. Before Josh Allen entered the league, Aaron Rodgers was my favorite player in the National Football League. At one moment in time, and I still might believe this, I think he's the most talented quarterback to ever play the game. With that being said, his last year in Green Bay was not good. He got hurt with the Jets, and then the next year he was fine. I will say, he threw for what? 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. I will say, I think the Jets roster is a little overblown. People were like, let's just get Aaron and we'll be fine. And they were the betting favorites to win the division, and he didn't play well, and Robert Saleh got fired, and Todd Downing was calling the plays, and thank God he's nowhere near this coaching regime, Todd Downing. The Jets have nice pieces, but it's not like some gang. But like Garrett Wilson's good. Is he a number 1? I think. Breece Hall's good. Is he a number 1 running back? I think so. But that's it. They have a good young running back, good young wideout. That's it. Their offensive line is not good, and their defense is good when they have a good coach coaching them. Now, should Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and all those boys won more than 4 games or 5 games? Yeah, they should have. And Aaron wasn't great. But Brett Favre wasn't great the year he went to the Jets as well. And then he went to the Vikings and was a throwaway from going back to the Super Bowl. Now, that throw was his fault. Threw across his body, and the rest is history. I just think there's a world. Again, I'm not saying this is a likely outcome, but I think there's a world where Aaron Rodgers says, one last ride, revenge tour. I'm going to do the best I can to prove to people that I could win without being in Green Bay. Now, there's the Devontae Adams of it all. I don't think Devontae Adams is just going to follow Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's going to happen, especially if Aaron Rodgers wants to play for the Raiders. But if we build the offensive line correctly, this, by the way, is roster dependent. This is all determined by what our roster looks like. If we have like a T. Higgins or a DK Metcalf paired with Jacoby Myers, 1,000-yard season, no drops, and Brock Bowers, you draft Ashton Genty or running back in the second or third round, you can convince me that Aaron Rodgers can get you to the playoffs one last time. And by the way, he's going to be extremely cheap. He won't be the cheapest person of all time, but he'll be cheap in terms of what, Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy might get this year. So we'll see. We'll see. And look, Hot Mike User says, I disagree wherever Aaron goes, Devontae follows. I understand the logic of that, but I think Aaron Rodgers, these past 2 years in New York, has lost all his credibility in terms of being able to call the shots. Pete Carroll's going to say, Aaron, you want to play for us? We want you to play for us. You're not going to make any roster decisions. And Aaron's either going to say, okay, Pete, lead me, or I'm going to retire. So I think that's the way that's going to go. So we have Zach Wilson, Shedeur Sanders, Aaron Rodgers. My number 3 option, that was Aaron Rodgers. My number 2 option, my brain just buffered for a second. Nobody's going to like it. It is what it is. I understand. It's Sam Darnold, and the franchise tag is not an option. You know what? That actually is a positive, I feel like, that he's not getting franchise tag now that I think about it. That news just broke. Thank you guys for updating me on that. I think that's a positive because they're telling Sam, hey, we're not giving you $55 million to be our quarterback here. If you think you can get that, be our guest. But if Sam Darnold is not getting franchise tagged, he's open to re-signing a contract with the Vikings. That means they're going to offer him less than the franchise tag, which means that Sam Darnold understands his market value is less than the franchise tag. So he's not going to ask for the Brock Purdy deal or the $50 million. I've said my piece on Sam. I think with our system that we're building, he could be really good. I don't think 2 games at the end of the year, 2 of the biggest games he's ever played in, his first full-time gig as a starter. I think he's a very good quarterback. But I'm not going to spend too much time on him because I've spent a million hours of my life talking about him, and now I'm a Sam Darnold, fanboy out of thin air. My number 1 option, and I think we're all in agreement on this, if we don't have to trade a first-round pick for him, it's Matthew Stafford. Now, if you're okay with Aaron Rodgers at 41, you got to be okay with Matthew Stafford at 38. The ball was in the air with a chance to defeat the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles with Matthew Stafford under center. And that Rams roster was good, not great. I think if you trade for Matthew Stafford, you give him a 2-year deal. Then you either draft a Shedeur Sanders or you go best player available. You draft Jackson Dart or Will Howard. And you let Matthew Stafford change the winning ways of our culture. And yeah, by the way, Hot My User, I'm out on Stafford too if it's a first. Now, if it's a first next year, I might do that. If it's a first this year, they're not getting the 6th pick for Matthew Stafford. I promise you, they're not getting a top 10 pick for him. If somebody gives a top 10 pick for Matthew Stafford, that's absolutely insane. I'm down to give him a 2nd and Aiden O'Connell, or a 2nd and a 4th, maybe a 2nd and a 3rd because we have 2 thirds, or first next year. I'm totally fine with because it's going to be in the teens, right? Stafford is the best option out there if you can get him for a reasonable deal. Again, with $100 million to spend, you got a new number 1 wideout, whoever that's going to be, with Jacoby and Brock. If you have your 6th pick, you go Ashton Genty, or you find that running back. You've got Chip Kelly calling the plays, Matthew Stafford running the offense, Max Crosby running the defense. If Aaron Rodgers was my favorite quarterback before Josh Allen came in, Matthew Stafford was my 2nd. I thought he was wasting away in Detroit, and the second he went to the Rams, I predicted a Rams Super Bowl. And sure enough, they win the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford is without a doubt, if you don't have to give him a first this year, my number 1 option. Hot Mike says, only way I want Stafford is if it's for a 3rd, a 6th, and Aiden O'Connell. Anything feels much higher. Look, I hear you. I get it. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you were actually in the room and I said 2nd round pick for Matthew Stafford, and you were saying, I don't know, and you think about the quarterback play we've had the last 5 years, I think it would be hard to say no to that. I think it would be pretty hard to say no to that. So my list in order from 5 to 1: Zach Wilson, maybe the next Sam Darnold, cheap option. Shedeur Sanders, the only rookie I would consider starting week 1, but I wouldn't love to do that either way. Aaron Rodgers, cheap option, revenge tour, one last ride. Sam Darnold is going to be the most expensive option, but I think he's the best player out there, free agency wise. That won't cost you any draft capital. Matthew Stafford. Now, I'm going to put 3 options out to you right now. I think these are the most likely contracts that these quarterbacks get. I'm going to take Matthew Stafford off the board because you'd have to trade for him, and I think we all agree that he's the best player. And I'm going to take Shedeur Sanders off the board because you'd have to draft him. Of the free agents that are going to be available, and these are the options that you have, which one are you choosing? Are you choosing Zach Wilson on a 2-year prove-it deal? 2 years, $10 million, $5 million per. Extremely cheap. Build the roster around him, see what the kid can do. Aaron Rodgers, 1 year, last ride, $20 million. That's not that much money in today's day and age. Derek Carr makes 37.5. Or Sam Darnold, 3 years, 120, $40 million per. We're not talking guaranteed money here. I'm not an accountant. I don't know what the cap situation looks like. What would you discuss? And by the way, comment below other potential quarterbacks that I haven't talked about. Next Effect 83 says, may I ask, why not Justin Fields? He would be dirt cheap. We know it was Getsy who ruined him, and Carroll has experience with some mobile QBs in Wilson and Geno. I considered going Justin Fields instead of Zach Wilson, but full disclosure, I liked Wilson better than Fields coming out. And I do think, with Getsy, not great for Justin Fields, obviously. I just really struggle with run-first quarterbacks because if you're not Lamar Jackson, it's hard to convince me that you're going to be able to figure out how to read that defense, which he just struggles with. And maybe Zach Wilson can't do that either. But from a pure arm talent standpoint, I'm putting my money on Zach Wilson rather than Justin Fields. But if they go Justin Fields, I wouldn't hate it. I would trust in Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. And right now, we have a 3-way tie between Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Sam Darnold. Wow. Interesting. Now, if you watch the Rich Eisen show, which is basically the only sports show that I watch that's like on network television or whatever, they have what's that called? Like an audio drop. They have a drop, right? That goes, you think we need one more? Yeah, let's do one more. Now, I gave you my top 5. We talked about Justin Fields. There's other quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones out there. Let's talk about one more quarterback that might be available for dirt cheap that I'm just throwing it out there. Do not be surprised if this quarterback is available if our name pops up. What do you think about Derek Carr? Now, I know by saying the words Derek Carr, I've just set the proverbial Raiders Discord, Raiders Reddit, Raiders Bleacher Report forum on fire. But here's the deal. He started this season pretty well. He threw for 15 touchdowns, 5 picks, right? And then got hurt. He's in his early to mid-30s. He's going to cost you nothing. I'm not saying I would sign him. But if you need a bridge quarterback to hand the ball off and let the defense do their thing, which, by the way, Derek Carr never had a top 28 defense with the Las Vegas Raiders. The 2016 team that went 12-4 where he got MVP votes. Does anybody know what the Raiders defense was ranked scoring-wise? I'll stop you right there. It was 32nd. Just throwing it out there. DC4, nostalgia hit, back with the Raiders, 1 year, $10 million. Pete Carroll reincarnates the Legion of Boom. He hands the ball off to Ashton Gentry. He's throwing to Brock Bowers, DK Metcalf, Jacoby Myers. You draft Shador Sanders or Jackson Dart, and they learned under probably the best quarterback to learn under in the whole league, Derek Carr. One last ride. He's not on my list. He's not in my top 5, but he would be cheap. I don't know. I think about it, and it's just a possibility. And I understand people going, "Don't do it again, don't do it again." I do think the difference now would be that everyone understands what the assignment is here. There's no more arguing like, "Is Derek top 5? Is Derek top 10?" We know he's not. We know he's not. He would just be here to hand the baton off to the next rookie. Just a cheap option. Maybe Pete Carroll can coach him up. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. So we have no definitive answer on this poll. Interesting. It's a polarizing conversation. So, okay, we got about 4 minutes to go here. I want to just talk quickly about a couple free agents that I would consider signing. Now, these aren't guys that are like Malcolm Kuntz or Isaiah Polamau or Adam Butler. These are guys that are not on our team that I think we're going to take a long, hard look at. Areas of need, maybe areas of luxury, and we'll go from there. So there's 3 people that I just want to discuss right now. Give your thoughts in the comments below, whether you're watching this live or after the fact on YouTube. We need some wide receiver in there to be a big throw it up, go up and get a target. Whether you have a Sam Darnold or Aaron Rodgers or Shador Sanders, you need someone that's going to be that. Just throw it to him and he's going to make a play. I think T. Higgins is going to cost too much money, and the more I think about it, the more I feel like he's going to be a Cincinnati Bengal still. You could trade for a DK Metcalf, but we're talking about free agents, and there's a 28-year-old who's still, I think, in his prime. Hot Mike, I'm just going to ignore that completely. I don't think that's going to happen. And his name is Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, I understand. Not the healthiest cat out there, but he's only 28. And when he is healthy, he's a top 15 receiver in the National Football League. John Spytek knows about the health of Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And I know it feels like he's been in the league forever, but he's only 28. And he's not going to command the type of money that T. Higgins is going to command. And when you close your eyes and you think about a wide receiver core of Chris Godwin, Jacoby Myers, and Trey Tucker, with Brock Bowers being the number 1 option, that is a recipe for success for any quarterback that steps in. You just got to keep him healthy, which is why you don't pay him a ton of money. He's not going to break the bank in free agency, but he's going to be available for sure. He's not getting tagged. And if he wants to join Spytek and Brady and Pete Carroll, that's someone you got to consider. And by the way, he's not a true number 1. Don't need a number 1 wideout. You got Brock Bowers, who's a number 1. Who was the number 1 of the Kansas City Chiefs? Travis Kelce. It would be nice to get a true number 1, but that's T. Higgins. That's going to be too much money. You could draft somebody, or you can go with the proven commodity. And you have an awesome number 2 in Jacoby Myers and another awesome number 2 in Chris Godwin, with Brock Bowers being your focal point. Just something to throw out there. Dre Greenlaw, he's a linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. Again, coming off of an injury-riddled season, but he doesn't have the worst injury history. He is one of the best coverage linebackers in the National Football League. And time again, we consistently find good linebackers that make a bunch of plays tackling, Divine Diablo, Robert Spillane, but we struggle to find that lockdown cover linebacker that can run with, well, I guess we don't have to worry about the likes of Travis Kelce anymore, but other tight ends that we're going to have to deal with. And I think Dre Greenlaw, again, is somebody that comes from a high-powered defense that can come in and fit right in next to Robert Spillane when you re-sign him. The last person I would consider is a defensive tackle. Cavs beat the Knicks by 36. Yikes. The defensive tackle who was wreaking havoc in Super Bowl 59 with the Philadelphia Eagles, 25 years old, coming off a 6-sack season. He's going to need a new contract, and that's Milton Williams. He's going to command a big-time market, and I know a lot of people like the Mason Graham option, but that's not a proven commodity. As good as you might think he's going to be, Milton Williams in the Super Bowl was a nightmare. And the reason he was a nightmare in a good way, in a bad way for the Chiefs, is because Walker was being doubled and Carter was being doubled and Sweat was being doubled. And he was going one on one and he was cooking the Chiefs line. And what better way to duplicate the success of the Philadelphia Eagles than to get somebody who was just playing for that same team? So if you sign Milton Williams, you've got Milton Williams and Christian Wilkins up the middle, and on each end you got Max Crosby and possibly Malcolm Kuntz, possibly Caleb on Chason, maybe Tyree Wilson. I just saw that come up. No way that was you. I saw that come up next level, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool," but I don't want to promote it on here because I didn't want to break the flow. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hey, if you want to join my Patreon, patreon.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you for signing up. Chris Godwin, Mill Williams, Dre Greenlaw. Here's the poll. If you could sign one of them, who would it be? Now, there's a fourth option there. You could vote for other. Comment below your other option. I saw someone say T. Higgins. I'm seeing people say draft a wide receiver. I don't hate all this. I don't hate all this. But if you could just have one of these guys, I think my most. I'm between. I don't know. I'm between Godwin and Williams. But to be honest with you, in an ideal world, we got all three of these guys. We got the money to do it, especially if you're going a little cheaper with the quarterback, with Aaron Rodgers or a rookie. Now, if you go Sam Darnold or trade for Matthew Stafford, you probably can't get all three of these guys and re-sign everybody. But in an ideal world, we get at least two of these guys. Right now, Dre Greenlaw is leading. That's interesting. I thought he would not get any votes, but you guys are smart. You're looking for coverage linebackers. So, look, this was a wonderful stream. We've hit our 30-minute mark, and I think I've said all I needed to say. Just to recap, my top 5 quarterbacks from 5 to 1 in terms of people that I would like to see replace whoever was starting last year. That nonsense. Number 5 is Zach Wilson. Number 4 is Shedeur Sanders. Number 3 is Aaron Rodgers. Number 2 is Sam Darnold. Number 1 is Matthew Stafford. These are 3 free agents that aren't homegrown that I would consider going after, that I think John Spytek is going to consider going after all 3 of these guys. I would like to get them all. Chris Godwin, sneaky. I'm just telling you, the connections are there. Don't be surprised if it happened. And A-Rod we trust. I don't know if I trust him quite yet, but I used to love him, and I would love to get him back in the mix here. How Mike User, Godwin, Jacoby with Trey Tucker, taking the top off the D, Big Mike and Bowers. Who are you going to cover? You're speaking my language, bro. Thank you guys so much for watching the stream. Same time next week, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Friday, I'm off, and then we'll be back rocking and rolling. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. It is free after all, no charge to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.